Hey everybody, I am live. I do believe I had to figure this out. I had to get Google Chrome to get me a website server that would help me get on live. So here I am. I don't know if anybody joins me or not, but we got coming up with Brisco and Bradshaw. We got Stan Hansen. Lariato! I'm going to ask about the time he told Nick Bockwinkel, I ain't doing it. That's that. That's when he mailed the truck back. Get this. Stan Hansen had to go back to Japan. So he gets to Denver, and Nick Bockwinkel tells him he's going to lose the title. Stan Hansen walks in with the title through the crowd so everybody knows he's there and tells Nick Bockwinkel, I ain't doing it, that's that, and walks out. Of course, we made up the fact that he said, I ain't doing it, that's that. Oh! But the big thing was he then took the title belt, ran it over with his tractor a bunch of times, and mailed it back to Nick Bockwinkel. So I'm excited to talk to Stan. You got to understand, when we went to Japan back in the day, as they say, in the early 90s, it wasn't like now. There were no cell phones. Very few people spoke English. If you didn't like Japanese food, which I really didn't, I'm more of a meat and potatoes guy, hard to find, and there's nothing to do. No one speaks the language. You're wrestling all over the freaking country. Now, one thing Stan was famous for was you had these tour buses, and on these tour buses, somebody would load a video, the latest Van Damme movie, latest Schwarzenegger movie, or Rocky or Stallone, whatever it was. People would watch it because we had nothing to do. And Stan, if he didn't like the movie, he would walk up, hit eject, and throw the tape out the window as they're going down the road. And because it was Stan Hansen, nobody ever said anything. Stan got the Andre chair. People used to always talk about respect in this business, and that was huge. And the buses that we rode on forever, and I guess still do when they're overseas in Europe or other places, that back middle chair was always reserved for Andre. And after Andre, it was reserved for people like Yokozuna, then The Undertaker. And now it's just a matter of respect that you put the big guy in that back chair. And it's just something that the business has always done. So I'm getting some questions. Favorite Dutch Mantell story? Yeah, I'll tell you a great Dutch Mantell story. Dutch used to ride with me, and Dutch was the best. I love Dutch. Tried to get him to come on the podcast. He didn't answer my text. I don't know why. He normally does. So Dutch told me one time, he said, all right, listen, you drive all the time. I'm going to drive. So he drove from whatever the turnpike was to U-Haul Junction down in Florida, about 30 miles. He drove so slow. And what he's trying to do is convinced me to never let him drive again. I didn't care. I was tired. I was listening to my country music, having a few adult beverages. So Dutch gets to a busy intersection, and he's going to call home. Before cell phones, he stopped off at a payphone. We all had calling cards. Dutch is making a phone call. I'm in the car listening to country music, had a few beers. I see Dutch, and I go up. He had the Zubaz on, and I pantsed him. Pulled his pants down to his ankles, and he had these hairy legs, and he had red and white striped briefs on with his shirt tucked in his briefs. People are driving by honking. Dutch is on the phone, and I've stepped on his Zubaz where he can't get them back up, and he's sitting there on the phone trying to get his Zubaz back up. Those little hairy legs. Hilarious. And he never drove since. Some more questions. Do you think Val Venus is insane? Yeah, absolutely I do. I've known Val Venus forever. He's a great guy also. You think about coming out of retirement? Yeah, of course I've thought about it. Will I do it? I don't know. We'll tell you a great story about Japan. We went over to Korea one time. It was me and Bobby Duncombe Jr. and Booker T. And so we get to Korea. We'd worked for Kendo Nagasaki, I believe it was, in Japan. And then we went to work for Lee Won-pyo in Korea. We just got there. We didn't know anybody. They give us a week off in the middle of the city. Now, we don't know where anything is. We later found the American base, the bar scene. There was even the Hooker Hill, which was a hill with hookers, which we did not use, by the way. But before we found that, we're stuck in the middle of Korea, don't speak any of the language, and don't know where to go to eat anything. Don't have much money. So Duncombe and I would go to we found a 7-Eleven, and we would get hot dogs, and we were eating them. And I said, Bobby, these things taste terrible. So finally he said, well, let's put it in the coffee pot and boil it and see if that makes it better. So we boiled it, and then when we did, I realized that it was wrapped in little thin plastic. We've been eating these hot dogs with plastic on the entire time. And then they tried to stiff us for money to boot. So got some questions. Culture shock from Ian James going to Japan. The biggest shock was everything seems like the same. A lot of things were bombed in World War II, so there's not a lot of great history. You go to the old palace or the temple, and you can see some shrines near Ueno Station where Animal Hamaguchi had a gym. It was upstairs, and Funaki-san was a young boy at the gym at the time. That's where they had, in fact, one of these swords came from there. When I finally made some money, when I went to work for Tenru, I'd seen these swords all the time, and I wanted to buy it. I didn't have any money. When I went to work for Tenru, finally had enough money and bought one of these swords there. It was right by the world's biggest Shitai shrine. But it was like being on the moon or something at the time. It was so different from Texas, and great place. People, unbelievably friendly. I tried to learn the language, but my accent was so bad I never did have much luck with it. Josh DeRoy, Stan Hansen, what do you think of your lyric? I don't know, because I never got to hit him with it. He hit me with his all the time. Young cowboy versus old cowboy. People ask if Stan is blind. I'll tell you a story about Stan. And he did not see well. But we always joke that Stan just liked potatoing people and blamed it on his eyesight. So Stan's working with, he's tagging with Bobby Duncombe, and took him in like a son. Bobby, was a good friend of mine. I did the eulogy at Bobby's funeral. We were roommates when we first started in Garland, Texas. Horrible place we lived in. Bobby's a good guy. His whole family, good people. And Bobby's tagging with Stan. I'm tagging with Barry Windham. And at the end of it, Stan hits me with the lariat. Then he hits Barry with the lariat. Barry comes back. Now we're in Tokyo, I think Budokan Hall. And he comes in and he says, Stan. And Stan goes, thanks, Barry. And he goes, Stan. And he goes, thanks, Barry. And he goes, Stan, put on your glasses. So Stan puts on his glasses, and Barry's whole face had been busted open, his eyes swollen shut. And Stan says, what happened to you? And Barry said, well, I couldn't be that damn lariat you just hit me with. It was hilarious. Absolutely classic Stan. He knew he hit it, but it's just having fun. Big guys played tough back then. Michelle Falconer, I believe, asked me the biggest difference in Japan wrestling and U.S. wrestling. It was very, it's hard to use this word in a correct way, serious. Japan wrestling back in the day, people didn't applaud. They started stamping their feet a little bit when starting in the early 90s. It kind of ruined part of the business because guys would get used to hearing the foot stops when you do a false finish, 1-2 kick out. And so guys would want to hear the foot stops. And so then it came, now you're doing 25, 30 false finishes, and it was all to get people stopping their feet. That's the wrong way in the business. That's the crowd leading you, not you leading the crowd. Big difference. But for the most part, the Japanese fans very respectful. They wouldn't say a word, and it was really eerie because if you're having a good match, you're beating guys with chairs, you're hitting them. It was stiff. It was really stiff back then. It may be now too. I don't know now because I hadn't been over there in a long time. And people would just sit there and watch. Just watch. You think, am I doing a good job? It was incredible. And a lot of guys you worked with didn't speak the language. So you just kind of had to feel it out. It was really kind of taught you the business. You're working every night in a different town, different area. Just a couple more questions. Hardest hitting opponents you faced in the ring? There were a few. I'll tell you who was the hardest hitting opponent I ever faced was Nathan Jones. Nathan Jones, remember him, the big guy from Australia? He seemed like a really good guy. I didn't know him well, but I worked with him. He was very hesitant, like he didn't trust me. And finally I said, Nathan, I promise you, I'm going to make you look great. Just listen to me. And from that point forward, he trusted me. But when he'd hit you across the back, it was like getting hit with a sledgehammer. My feet would tingle. He'd hit me so hard. Nathan Jones was unbelievably strong guy. And what an incredible look. I was with him on that trip when we went to across the continent of Australia to Perth, where he's from. We had flown in that through Russia, where we almost had the plane crash that people talk about so much. Then we went to Seoul. Then we went to Singapore, I believe. Then we went all the way to the other side of Australia within 3 days. It was the hardest trip I've ever been on. And when we got there, Nathan just had had enough. Dean Malenko was the agent, and he told me, he said, Nathan's leaving. And I said, what do you mean? And then he just walked out, grabbed his bag and walked out. He was in his hometown. He was going over, and he had had enough and decided that was it, and never saw him again. Who took a better clothesline from hell better than Rikishi? Hardly anybody. Rikishi was great, man. He was so freaking talented. Oh, and by the way, I want to tell you something about Elimination Chamber coming up. I'm going down this week to do my pre-show as not as usual because I don't go every single month, but I always love going down and seeing the guys. And by the way, I want to tell you, people talk about respect all the time. I'm sitting there in a dressing room. I usually dress with Booker T and some of the old guys. Booker and I have been friends a long, long time. Matt Riddle, Damian Priest all come in. Disrespect. Say hi to the old guys. It was really cool. It's what we used to do, walking in and saying hi to guys like Stan or Doc or anybody else, Dick Murdoch, and they did the same thing. It was really cool. But years ago, my only Elimination Chamber, I'm in the pod. Now, I understand, when I got toward the end of my wrestling career, I was hurt a lot and wrestled probably longer than I should have. I love the business. I'd go back right now if I could. And I'm in the pod waiting to go my turn. And I think it was Umaga. He was a big, tough guy, man. He had a match one time with Cena. And I've got this to town and the pay-per-view. I think it was SummerSlam. I think it was San Antonio. I didn't do commentary because we were on, I guess they were on Raw. We were on SmackDown commentary. One of the best matches I've ever seen. Great worker, great guy. But as he's walking across the grate outside of the Elimination Chamber, his feet are killing him. And I'm sitting there thinking, if this big, tough Samoan, who I know is a tough guy, can't even walk across this structure, the heck am I doing in this thing? At the same time I'm thinking that, some fan, probably 4 or 5 rows back, yelled, "Hey, JBL, you fat ass, what are you doing in there?" And I looked around and said, "I don't know." And I didn't know. He just looked at me and laughed. I was like, I did not want the door to open. I thought there's nothing in there that is safe, at least especially back then. They made it a little safer now, but that thing hurts. I'm so glad I'm not in an Elimination Chamber. I'm glad I'm just doing a little commentary. Looking forward to going back down to Tampa. A couple more questions. Nathan's in a lot of movies now, a true professional. Yeah, Nathan's great. I love Nathan. I'd love to see him again. It's funny because Nathan didn't say much. And one day he come up to me, Nathan Young, came up to me and said, "Hey, let me talk to you about currencies." And he wanted to talk to me about the Australian dollar and how it was being hedged in different ways. It was really in-depth, intricate stuff. It was really cool. I mean, Nathan's a deep thinker and a good guy. Not that anybody would think he's dumb, but sometimes when a big athlete doesn't say much, you just assume they're not into a lot of stuff. He was. I liked him a lot. Love the T-shirt. Thank you very much. I've gotten about 8 of them. This is the only one I can find. I've moved from Bermuda to here in Bethesda, Maryland, right next to D.C., and I can't find my Brisco Brothers T-shirts, so I've worn them all over the place. So I'm down to 1, but I've got 7 or 8 more somewhere, and I did not pay for any of them because Jerry Brisco is from Oklahoma and I'm from Texas, so he should give me stuff for free because I'm from Texas. Stan Hansen also from Texas, so it'd be 2 of us against 1 Okie. By the way, I do have to bring this up. Gerald Brisco from Oklahoma used to live near that Freebird-looking meth guy, that Tiger King, and then he moved down to Florida right next to Carol Baskin. I don't think that's a coincidence. I'm just saying. A couple more questions. I don't want to waste anybody's time. Let's see. What do I think about wrestling now? I like it. Too many high spots for me. But they said the same thing about my generation, the older generation. I'm not going to be the guy who says this generation does it wrong. I think they're great, and they're incredible athletes. I love this Damian Priest guy. What a look, man. You just can't replicate a look. I think the guy's got it. I love Matt Riddle, too. You talk about the young guys that are out there. Young to me. I'm 54 years old. Good guys. Do you really have a limo bullhorn on your limos? Of course I do, man. I'm JBL. Of course I do. Do I plan on writing an autobiography? No. I don't think so. I got so many great stories, but some of them guys don't want told. And I'm not going to be the guy who's the stooge and tell stories that some guy doesn't want to tell about drinking in a bar and somewhere in Kumamoto or South Africa or somewhere else. make guys mad just off making a little money off a book. You know, I just don't think that's the right thing to do. I wrote a book. I have more money now, which was brought up, and I lost the person's name there. I apologize for that. Oh, here it is, Sarah Dunworth. Thanks, Sarah. I've seen you on a lot. And I tried to, you know, kind of sanitize it for home use. You know, I'm not going to get anybody in trouble or make them look bad. I just didn't want to do that. Let's see. How's the body holding up all these years? Toby Emery. Okay. Yeah, I'm working out again. I'm training again. I just had a shoulder operated on. I went in and had an operation. It was supposed to be a small one. I had a 2.5 centimeter chunk in there for some reason that had broken off the part of the shoulder, collarbone or whatever it was in there. Went to take it out and realized the bicep was torn up here. And so I've had my bicep now fixed here and up here. So I'm completely artificial. But I'm training again, and I feel pretty good. I mean, could I wrestle another match? I could clothesline Byron Saxton, I'll tell you that, which would be fun. Just a couple more. It's times with Barry Windham. I had some great times with Barry Windham. Barry Windham could drive a car faster, longer than any human being alive, drink more beer than any human being alive. Barry was about the coolest guy I've ever met, and just a first-class individual. He was so freaking talented. It was unbelievable how talented he was. Sorry, my phone's ringing. I was trying to answer stuff here. Now getting back to the show here somewhere, if I can. Let's see, figure out how to do all this. I know I can. Let me see here. Oh, Lord. I think I'm still on. So anyway, yeah, Barry Windham to me, a terrific guy. Always been a great guy. Here I am, Pat. Sorry, guys. Technology drives me nuts. Barry Windham, a terrific guy, a good guy, and a lot of fun. So one more question, and I'll see what it is. I love that documentary, Ron Simmons, best friend I've ever had. Terrific guy. JBL from Matthew Gold, come fix Texas, please. Man, I feel for you guys. Love you guys. That's my state, my home, always will be. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. We got Stan Hansen coming up next week on the show. We got so many incredible questions and so much fun, so many fun things to talk about. The match with Vader, all the different stuff. You guys have a great day. Thanks for joining me. I don't do these often, and I'm not even sure how to do them. So thanks a lot. Have a great day.